hopefully she'll be joining us soon. Okay, I just want to make sure we're live on Facebook. I'm sorry, on YouTube. Okay, and I just got a message from Hulda that we are live on YouTube. So Suzanne, if you want to start with your intro, I think we will still have people that will be joining us as we're going, but it is 7:01. So
yeah, how many have the people that registered for the UN CSW panel, were they able to get on, or do we know that they're on?
We have 12 people that have joined from the CSW so far. So hopefully more will be joining soon.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm Suzanne Scholte, chairman of the North Korea Freedom Coalition, and it's a great pleasure to welcome you as the chair of the coalition to our panel, Empower the Women Who Sustain North Korea. By way of background, the UN Commission on the Status of Women had never addressed the situation facing North Korean women in its 70-year history. That is until 2016, when North Korea Freedom Coalition member Betsy Kalamira of Women for Nonviolence suggested action, and we got to work. Our efforts led to a March 18, 2016 panel for the first time featuring the voices of North Korean women. It was organized by then U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Samantha Power, with the co-sponsorship of the South Korean, Japanese, and United Kingdom's missions to the United Nations. Since that time, thanks to Ann Buwalda and Jason West, the treasurer and vice chair, respectively, of the North Korea Freedom Coalition and the Jubilee campaign, we've been able to host a panel session every year as part of the UN Commission on the Status of Women. And each time our goal has been to raise awareness about the suffering the women of North Korea must endure every day as they bear the brunt of the human rights violations of the Kim dictatorships, but also to inspire you with their amazing stories of triumph and to call you to action, to join us in the cause for North Korea's freedom and human rights. As the title of our panel is Empower the Women Who Sustained North Korea, we want to reveal through the voices of three amazing women the reality of life for North Korean women, but also their strength and resilience as the ones who literally saved and continue to save the population. It is a fact the women of North Korea, through their own sheer self-determination to save their families, created the market system in North Korea. Our three panelists are both eyewitnesses and inspirations. I will introduce them and moderate the first panel, which will focus on their eyewitness accounts. And then I'm going to turn the program over to Ann Buwalda, who will moderate the second panel on their resettlement, to discuss their resettlement experiences and recommendations. Now, I'm going to introduce the three women. We're hoping that Jade will be joining us. She's actually calling in from South Korea, but I'm going to introduce her with the hope that she's going to be getting on the call pretty soon. But our three witnesses are North Korean escapee Jihyun Park, who is now a citizen of the United Kingdom and a candidate running for office in her local election. She's a survivor of forced marriage and human trafficking in China. She escaped North Korea twice, only to be forcefully repatriated to North Korea, where she had to suffer in North Korea's political prison camps and nearly died a number of times. Her bravery in speaking out for the women of North Korea led her to be awarded the NatWest's Chairman's Award in 2018 and Amnesty's Brave Award in 2020, just last year. Our second witness, North Korean escapee Deborah Choi, is now a citizen of the United States of America and a Virginian, like me, having resettled in the Commonwealth of Virginia. She escaped from North Korea in 2004 with the help of Pastor Chun Ki-won and was among the first group of North Korean defectors to be accepted for resettlement in the United States in 2006, after the passage of the North Korea Human Rights Act. So she's especially close to us as the North Korea Human Rights Act was an initiative started by the North Korea Freedom Coalition and the reason for our founding. Deborah studied nursing at a community college in New Jersey and now runs a successful small business with her husband and is a proud mother of 2 children and is an active member of the North Korea Freedom Coalition. This is her first public appearance. North Korean escapee Jade Kim, who will be calling in from South Korea, is now a citizen of South Korea and is currently living and studying in Seoul in Hanguk University for Foreign Studies, where she is majoring in Chinese. She defected from North Korea more than 10 years ago. She was one of the first North Korean defectors to study abroad in the United States and attended educational institutes in California and Tennessee. Jade is very active with a number of organizations focusing on North Korean human rights, and this is her first public appearance. Now, I want to start by quoting from a recent article that Jihyun Park wrote about freedom. Jihyun wrote, "For those who are not in a lightless cave, information, culture, and art are like warmth that melts away the chill on a cold winter's day. A moment to forget the struggles and dance beneath the palm trees in a lighthouse in the middle of a dark sea that you are blessed to see as a gift from God." I loved Jihyun's description of freedom. And so I'm so honored to have these brave women join us. And I'm going to, as I mentioned, each one of them will speak as we ask these questions, but we are so grateful for your bravery in speaking out about these issues on behalf of the North Korean women. So my first question is regarding the theme of the UN Commission on the Status of Women. The theme this year is about women's empowerment. Can you tell us how empowered you were as a North Korean woman? What kinds of rights and freedoms did you enjoy in North Korea? And we'll start with Jihyun's answer.
Thank you so much. That is really kindly introduced to me. So empowerment, when I heard this word in the UK, so first time I did understand because in the UK many people told it was women's rights. And there is also in 1990s is the Beijing conference, and Hillary also said that is women's rights are human's rights. So first time I heard that, I didn't understand what mean that. And I also work with Bessie Kamura, and she told me lots of more, because I work with her, and she bring me lots of universities, or some invited me some conference, and then I just opened my eyes, you know. So in North Korea, the mayor of the generations in gymnastics, and they controlled all countries by 75 years. So all North Korean women is the same as me. We have no right. We have no we have no freedom, liberty, or pursuit of happiness. So in 1996, North Korea announced that its Equal Act is men and women is equal. So they published in 1946. But however, it has maintained an unequal treatment for men and women in North Korea. So the democratic unions, or women's unions, sixth conference was held in North Korea, 20 November in 2016. So in the tournament held in 33 years, and it has suggested that they change the names of the Socialist Women's Alliance, because it's Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il's 주체 is a really important task, is women's unions. So that's why they changed the names. So in North Korea, they said that is women is also have to emphasize on the role, and they really important missions in society, in socialist countries. So we are just one of the wheels is two wheels, you know, this car example is car is two wheels. So one wheel man is holding, and another wheel woman is holding. So they said that this means women and the man is equal, but it's never happened. You know, usually women in North Korea is the distribution of countries. So it's the government to give to us rice is a different amount. So usually housewife, they got rice is 300 grams a day. You know, there's primary school children, they get the 400 grams a day, but it's housewife is 300 grams a day. That is really not an amount food in women's. and also pregnant women and illness women, they never care about that kind of women. So many women they have educations, but we choose the job is very limited jobs. And the women married, then they lost their jobs because just only men is work in companies and the females is housework, but they never free. They always work that is a kind of labor work pretty to outside. So never is the woman and the girl, woman and the man is equal in North Korea. So we usually say that is man is the sky and the woman is ground. So this means North Korea never care about the North Korean women and girls. So that's why usually the domestic violence happened in North Korea. But we usually we said that is man is a problem. We never said that is always is women's problems in North Korea. And we point out that this women's or something that. So that is really happened. So many women in North Korea, we never know that is what is freedom and what is women's rights. And they never know, and they never know that is what is happiness means. So that is really horrible because now is I am sit down in the UK and I know that is women's really important roles in a family or in societies, but North Korea has never happened.
So Deborah. Thank you, Jihyun.
Okay, when I was living in North Korea, I felt women had no empowerment at all. The regime does emphasize sexual equality every day, and they praise themselves that their country is the only one that gives women empowerment. However, instead of giving women actual empowerment, they take advantage of it and exploit women by assigning them jobs like doing hard labor, such as in constructions, mining, the army, the same as a man. Yet they are also required to do all the domestic work in the home. My woman has to do all the domestic works. Normally, usually a man they don't do domestic work in the house. That was all our jobs. And there is absolutely no freedom in North Korea, especially for a woman. While I was living in North Korea, women were forbidden to wear pants in public. The regime says women wearing pants is an example of capitalism. And they also say that the look of women wearing pants is not appropriate because it doesn't fit the idea of how traditional Korean women should look. If you were caught wearing pants by the street police, they took you to the police station and cut your pants with the scissors, and you had to pay a fine. They also take anything. If you don't have fine ready, then they will take anything you had of value and keep it until you pay the fine. And also women were forbidden to have their hair longer than like a few inches below the ears. Like you have to grow only like this way. You have to cut it if you cannot have hair longer. So it's same thing. If you were caught by police on the street, they take you to the station and then they cut your hair, or you take or pay fine, or they take your valuable things and keep it until you pay the fine. Another thing is that when I was there, women were not permitted to ride bicycles for the same reason they couldn't wear pants. Bicycles are the only means of transportation because the only cars in North Korea are owned by the government or some big company. So women must work hours every day to get to where they need to go. Men, they don't care. They can ride a bicycle, like a motorcycle, cars. They don't care. But it happened to women. So those are only a few examples of how women suffer in North Korea without freedom and empowerment. And I feel very horrible, what I experienced. And I'm very happy I just got out there and then enjoying my freedom and empowerment in the United States. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Deborah. I just want to check to see, has Jade been able to join us?
Yes, Jade is with us now.
Great, Jade. I want to repeat the question for you. We're so proud that you could be with us. I gave you a great introduction, but I want to get right to the question. We're talking about the theme of the UN Commission on the Status of Women is about women's empowerment. And Jihyun and Deborah were answering the question to tell us how empowered the women of North Korea are. What kinds of rights and freedoms did you enjoy when you were in North Korea? So Jade, it's turning it over to you now. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Can you
There
hear
she
me?
is.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So talk about the rights of women in K. That's actually I never heard about the rights of the woman when I was in there. So talking about based on my experience, so I was a student in there and one time, and like I wear the like a jeans, wear the jeans, skinny jeans, and then I walk on the street, and then there is always there's people who check your appearance, especially the hairs and then clothes. And then he approached to me, and then he cut my jeans like I think it's over 10 centimeters. That's kind of normal. And then one time also like I had a like hair like this because I watched the movies. I thought that hairstyle was really cool, and I did it. And then they asked me to come, and then said I'm an example of the capitalism because that kind of hairstyle is like it's normal, right? So and then they cut my hair, and then I feel like I didn't say anything, because it's my right, because I didn't know about I've never heard about the right of the woman and also as a people, in there. So I just like I did cried a little bit, and then I feel like I was scared and then just went back home. So that's when you ask about especially when people ask about the rights as a human in NK, that's kind of odd because I never heard about that words. So basically, no rights, I guess. Not I guess, no rights. Even it's daily life, the clothes. So yeah, that's what I can say based on my experience.
Wow. Well, thank you very much. Our next question, in light of what you've shared with us about the fact that the women of North Korea have absolutely not a single human right, not even the right to the style of their hair, to ride a bike, or to wear the clothes they want. What role did women play in North Korea during the arduous march? Because we understand that they were the reason why there was a market system that got created in North Korea. But if you could describe from your own personal experiences, what role did women play in North Korea during the arduous march, starting with Jihyun?
It's most people think about that is all those marches only between 1994 to 1998. They talk about that, but North Korea started. They stopped the output in late 1980s. Late 1980s, because last time we didn't know the why, but now is I understood the reasons. That time is many Eastern socialist countries collapsed down. And the early 1990s, the former Russia also collapsed down. So North Korea didn't support to the socialist countries and financial problems. So that's why North Korea stopped the output. So that time is that our distribution card is lots of food. Is my house is the same as 1,000 kilograms or 2,000 kilograms. So early 1990s. North Korea government say that we started 2 meals a day because we are short of food. And also they told to us donations, your rice to army or somewhere. So my mother also donations is our this 1,000 kilograms rice to government or something like that. So my mother started her self-business in the late 1980s because in mid-1980s, Cheongjin opened the Chinese market because it's many Chinese businesses came to North Korea. So first opened in Cheongjin in mid-1980s, and then after opened in another areas. So many is a Hamgyong province is here. Many women is housewife. They started as a self business, but it was illegal. So we usually say that is the Jangmadang. That is called grass hooper. It's because it's not illegal market. So women is just is a stand, and sometimes the police came there and they just run out and after again. So my mother experience that is she always wear is a big kind of, we call it penang, it's a kind of bags. So not luxury bags, that is made cloth is cloth bags, and this bag is not only put 10 kilograms, 20 kilograms, that is usually 50 kilograms or 100 kilograms, right? Put the rice. So females, women is always wearing this heavy thing is they on the back because they have to responsibility the family members. Because man is they worked in company, but the government didn't give to them any salaries, any food. So, but his man is never think about that is families because they say that is their duty is only work in company. That is only duty. They never care about the families. So everything is on women's shoulders. So really hard work. So I still remember it. One thing is my neighbors. She was pregnant, and then after she has the baby in the early mornings. So then she relaxed only few hours, and after she worked in market. It's just only birth the child and the few hours after she started work in the market, and all the child look after this newborn baby, and baby is cried, and this child came to mother, and the mother then ran and after feed the child and work again. So it's really horrible times. The women is healthy and they eat, everything is weak, and the women is usually is mental problems, but they couldn't say because no one listened to their pain, their mental problems. So I still memorized because my mother also worked really hard, and she came to home at night times. So when I saw that is her sleep times, she never slept relaxed, always just is something beside, and sleep not is full relaxed, always talked about that. How did I respond with my family? What do we eat tomorrow morning? And what did I sold in the market? Always think about that. So that is really horrible times in this. It still happened in North Korea's market system, but now is 2019. North Korea opened the market. So, but that is still because government controlled, always controlled in market systems. And now is a pandemic, and they can't work in properly in a market. But so everything is women's think about that. How do they responsibility care about the families.
Thank you, Jihyun. Deborah?
Okay, so after the regime stopped the rationing, after 2 or 3 years of this, my mom started sell all our belongings on the black market, like furniture, pots, dishes, and clothes, and started trade other things. And like Jihyun explained very well, trading on the black market was not allowed at the time because the regime said it was capitalism also. So, and then if she was caught by police, they would take away everything she had. So I can't remember how many times this happened to my mother, and she would lose everything. And I still hear my mother crying and saying that, oh, it's not fair, you know, how will we survive? And I'd rather die, you know. It felt terrible, and I couldn't do anything to help her except just cry with her. However, the next morning, my mother would get up again and find a way to start all over. And she rose like a phoenix from the ashes, you know. She had a family to protect. So she went to her relatives to borrow what she could or help the farmers in the countryside, or she went to the mountain to collect the herbs. She did everything she could to start over. And then the police would take everything away again. But even though this happened again and again, my mother never gave up. As much as the regime and police tried to stop her, she got stronger and more determined and created new ways to survive. So this was not only my mother's story, it was every woman's story during the arduous march. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Deborah. Jade?
Okay. Well, I think two people already mentioned a lot of things, and that's are the real situation during the March urges in North Korea. And actually, I was very young at the moment, so I can explain about my parents and my grandmother. So, for example, my mom was she was a teacher in there, and then as a teacher in North Korea, you cannot get enough money. So I think she's very brilliant. So she find a way to earn money, so which is illegal in North Korea, to have like a illegal trade things with Chinese people. So she just went out home. But that's why my father always get trouble with the police, because your wife just went out, and then they always wanted to check. So whole my family was like, I feel like were guarded by the policemen. Do you understand what I'm saying? So they're always checking us, monitoring our families. So that's kind of made me feel very scared and unsafe. And then so my mom was always out of home, and then I went to I was sent to my grandmother's home, and then there's no food, right? Even they work very hard in their base, they no food and no money. Even they have desire to work hard, and there's no workplace to get on money and food, right? So one time she went to for dinner, about the dinner. I was too young, so I complained about the food because it's too bitter. It's a kind of porridge, And then my grandma told me that even there are families who cannot, who could not have this food even. So you should eat to be survive. And then I said, I don't need to survive. I wanted to better, porridge or better rice, even it's mixed, the mixed ingredients rice. And then she said, this is an acorn porridge. Do you know what is acorn? So anyway, so acorn is a kind of fruits from the mountains, right? And then she gave me that. I still cried and then still eat that porridge. But she said, you are lucky to have this porridge, So that was my personal experience during the March urges. And then another example was that my mom always went out. She was like a breadwinner. Actually, my dad is supposed to be the the head of the household, right? But he needed to work in the workplace. That's the way she could go out, right? So one time she came back from somewhere else. I cannot explain that place. So she come back from there to home, and then the police came to our home and knocked the door, and then they called my mom, and then she was in the prison like for less than I don't know, for 4 days or for 3 days or something. Yeah. That's my experience during that time. Yeah, actually, most of the women, they are the breadwinner during that time. I think there are several reasons, but one of the reasons the men should be in workplace, otherwise the whole family gonna get to trouble or something. Yes, that's all.
Thank you very much, Jade. Powerful. It's hard to digest the things. Well, speaking of food, the things that you guys are talking about, because the fact that the women of North Korea have no rights, and yet they're the ones that had to help the family survive. And these testimonies are powerful. My next question is about what led you to leave North Korea? What was the moment that you decided to leave North Korea? And how did you escape? I'm starting with Jihyun.
Yeah, it's the early 1990s. North Korea's really horrible times. It's many people. So we usually seen kind of dead bodies in street, and we usually heard that some neighbors died or family members divided, and they don't know the various family members. So in 1996, my uncle died of starvation in front of me. So that is really horrible times. It's my father and my mother is never told to us nighttime stories, but my uncle usually did, and he's usually talked to us kind of some stories he made. So I really love my uncle, but he died of starvation in front of me. So that time I just speechless. I couldn't say. So when he died, and then after all head rice and the body rices came out, and he looked like not person. He looked like that's animals. It's only skins and bones. So me and my father in front of him, and my father also can't speak. So then I had a lot of questions in my head, because we always respected to keep families, and we really hard work, and we are hungry, but we didn't complain to government. Because we believed, we respected to them. But after we received famine and family members died, and also family members divided, and they don't know that they are alive or not. So that is a really angry moment. But that time I didn't think about that. I left North Korea because I was a brainwashed child, and also learning the only socialist countries. So never talked about that. But in 1997, my younger brother had problems, and then my eldest brother last wish was save my younger brother. So I had to leave this country. But that time is my father condition is really weak, and after he also stable. Sometimes he's stable, and sometimes he woke up and only hand me. So in 1998, I abandoned my eldest brother alone in cold dining room, and then me and my younger brother left the country. So when I left my father, I didn't say goodbye to my father, because I wanted to reunite with my father again. I thought about that. So I left him with only 1 bowl rice and cleaning clothes next to him. So if someone find out my father, give to him last meal and change the clothes. That is my hope. So then I crossed the Tumon River in February. So it was a cold winter. So me and my younger brother crossed this border in midnight in Tumon River. So we crossed the halfway, and then North Korean soldiers shouted to us and gunfire to us. But we continued to walk, continued to run. So when we crossed the border, is 190% death. We knew that. and 1% is on hope. So we believe that this is 1%. And I thought that maybe I arrived in China, and then our life is green life, something but that is never happened. You know, I crossed the border, then I sold to Chinese men, and human trafficking, and after separated my younger brother. So he also repatriated to North Korea. So I still don't know if he's a survivor or not. So my life in China 6 years, and it's also not just human life, it is a slavery life, because Chinese families never allowed me is their family members. They only talked about me as their workers and also slavery. First time is I want to give up my life because I can't survive. You know, I already lost all family members. So how can I stay in survival in China? But then after I found out that I was pregnant. So I changed my mind because this child is my family, and this child is giving me hope and dreams. So then I kept this child, but this China government never accepted this child. So my son was born in China, and he was a statelessness child. He didn't get any kind of identifications, so he never went to the hospital, and he never went to school. So 6 years after, I also repatriated to North Korea, because the China government never accepted refugee in China. And also many Chinese people, they find out that it's North Korean refugees. Because if they find out the North Korean refugee and report to police, and after government paid money to them. So this money is better than their monthly salaries. So many Chinese people, they always find out the North Korean refugees. So I sent back to North Korea, and I separated my 5-year-old child. So that is in 2004. In 10 p.m. It was 10 p.m. and 10 Chinese authorities came to my home, and they arrested me. So I begged to them. I want to speak to my son, because I want to say to him goodbye. Wait, mom, wanted to say this word, but Chinese police never allowed me. So I didn't say any word to him. So we separated each others, and I sent back to North Korea and stayed in rebel camp. So before I sent back to North Korea, I met many North Koreans in Chinese prisons. So that time I really shocked, because I didn't know that is massive people escaped North Korea. So some people say that they already repatriated twice or third times, and they spoke about that is a North Korea rebel camp, you know, everything that they spoke to us. So really scared at this moment. But I just is hopeful, because in North Korea, education to us is in 1950s, you know, the many North Korean people, they went to South Korea. So North Korea has made a movie. Is if someone is come back to home, we this is forgiveness. We give to them kind of right, same right in North Korea. So I believe the little bit that is if I send back to North Korea, maybe government is because accepted to us, because the reasons that we left North Korea, everyone is hunger, not political meanings. We are just hunger, and we only find out the food in some areas. But once in North Korea, that's not totally not, because North Korea think about to us is anti-socialist persons. So we all political meanings in North Korea. So we stayed in prison. So when we stayed in prison, we are not human, because it's man and the females use the same toilet, and that is height only 50 centimeters. And everyone is just looked to them when they use the toilet. And also, I worked in different groups with females. So in this group is one female, she had pregnant and then sent back to North Korea. So she is really hard work. She is just run mountains up and down, up, down. And then after she just lost the child, but she never stopped her bleeding. bleeding, and then the her skin is changed. So I worked in there. We never wearing our shoes because we always without the shoes because in case we escape these places, and then women is always wearing the cartons, because we are not human, we are animals. So we wearing the cartons and really hard work. So if accident and something that they tortured anyway to us, and we quickly solve and we continue to run. So I had problems, my leg problems, and I almost dead. So they just released me because they say that you cannot die inside the camp, you died outside. So when I released the camp with another female, another woman, she also menstruations, she's hunger. So she always shouted, give me more food, give me more food. So then we released, and 3 days after she died in a street. But I really lucky I just survived because I only talked about that is my son. So every night I call it God, Buddha, Maria, God, everywhere. I just cried, please survive me. I was reunited my son. So united is a really important source, and it is my strength. So that's why I survived, and then I escaped again in North Korea, and then reunited my son. And in 2008, I arrived in Turkey.
Wow. Thank you, Deborah. I mean, I'm Jihyun, thank you. Thank you. That's so you're with your son in England now, right? Just want to clarify that.
Yes. So my son arrived in England when he was 9. So he first time got his real names and his identifications in here, and he first injections in the UK.
Thank you for sharing that testimony. Our next, Deborah. So what led you to leave North Korea, and how did you escape?
Okay. On the first day of 2004, I happened to watch a South Korean drama with a bunch of friends secretly. We blocked the window with the blankets and locked the door outside. So pretend that it's empty house, and then lower the volume down. So I can barely hear, but I still got to watch it. And the drama was about young people's life in South Korea, and I got shocked while watching it. The main actor and actress were exactly the same age as mine, and they live a totally different life than I. They have so many freedoms in their lives. No one controls them, and they can do whatever they wanted to, speak freely. They can talk about their honest feelings, and they can express true love. I didn't imagine that kind of life existed in this world. I thought our country is the best in the world. That's what I, always educated from them. So, and their lifestyle was unbelievable. They have plenty of food. They own so many clothes. They have lots of choices and opportunities. Overall, they are very, very rich. So it was so shocking that I couldn't stop thinking about it. And yeah, when I was eating and working and sleeping, it was constantly in my mind. And because of that, I couldn't function very well. So I was dying to see and feel that kind of world. So it didn't take me long to leave the country, and I managed to escape there 4 months later. So I had a friend whose father was a smuggler. He smuggled things from China, and he had all connections. So I went to their house almost every day to beg them for help to get me out of there. So they connected me and with the border guards, and they guided me to cross the border of Chumon River. So of course I had to pay lots of money to them. and I had to promise them I will come back to the North Korea. Otherwise, they wouldn't let me go. So yeah, that was my escape story.
Yeah. Wow. Well, did you, so you went through the Underground Railroad from China to South Korea with the help, that was Pastor Chunky One's Underground Railroad?
Yeah, I was planning to go to the South Korea, but my journey turned around to the America. So yeah, it happened to, I'm considered, I'm very lucky for that.
Well, yeah, because if you were watching the South Korean soap operas in 2004, that's when the North Korea Human Rights Act passed. And in the United States, and there's a lot of people agitating, trying to get people that were trying to got to China, refugees in China, and trying to get them to the United States. And I know you're one of that group. So, well, thank you for that. Yeah, thank you for sharing that testimony. So, Jade, what led you to leave North Korea, and how did you escape?
Okay, that's the good question. I think overall, like there are 5 reasons that North Korean refugees escaped from North Korea, like economic issues and the political issues, and then the freedom, the seeking freedom, and then starvation, and then family. But in my case, I think it's economic issues was the big one. And then actually there is 2 reasons, because the first reason was that I was a high school student. So and one day, like, I got a note from the school, like I had to go to the physical examination for the military service because of my height. I was like, yeah, I was a little taller than in my among my classmates. So, and then I didn't want to go to the military service because, you know, like, I mean, most of people know, like, if you go to the military service, like, maybe it's gonna be hard. I mean, most of North Korean refugees, they expect that. So I didn't want to go. That was my first reason. But and second reason was, like, as I mentioned already, like my mom had a business with Chinese people, which is illegal, and then her business kind of crumbled down. So she got a stroke, and then my family's economic situation is worse, you know. So I just subconsciously thought that, like, I need to go out this country to earn money to support my family, and then I also didn't want to go to the military service. So that's two, you know, 2 cases were my big motivation to decide to come out from North Korea. Yeah. That's mine.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I have another final question, then I'm going to turn the moderating over to Anne. But how are you doing today, Jihyun? Tell us about how you're doing.
Yeah,
you're running for office. Now, how are you doing today? How are you doing today?
I arrived in the UK 2008, but until the 2012, I never talked about that. I became human rights activities, and you know I became a politician, learning that this is elections, because I never heard that word is human rights or women's rights is really unfamiliar word for me, and I didn't understand that this all meanings. So in 2008, I got a visa, and then I really hard worked in South Korean restaurant, and also I have to learning English in night times. Then I also graduated again in high school and college in night times, because I already graduated the university in North Korea, but in the UK, it's not accept our university graduations. So that's why I got again is the skills certificates at high school and colleges, and also I got lots of customer service or hospitality, food hygiene certificate I did, because in here many times we have find jobs, but they need all skills. So I really hard work, but it's a really happy moment. I wanted to hide my experience because it is really painful and also not a shame. It's when I think about that is a human trafficking. That is really shame. So I want to hide that is a story. But in 2012, my old son, it was that time he was 12. And he asked me questions because he said that is mommy, I had one question and then I hide my memories. So I just said that, okay, because he's a 12 years old child, so maybe he needs new phones or new computers. I thought that, but he asked me that is, mommy, why did you abandon me and leave me? So he said that is, I know you never abandoned me, but when I was 5, his police came to my home and they arrested you. And you didn't come back because I counted 100 days, but you didn't come back. So when I heard this question, I just cried, I just cried because I can't answer to him. Where is the beginning and how can I tell him is situations this happened? So after I just opened the eyes and looked around. So in my around is many people in there and they need our help. They need our voice. So after I changed and I just give up my dreams, Everyone is the same dreams. I wanna earn lots of money, reach something but I give up those dreams. And then I started sharing my stories to all people. And after I found that many North Korean refugees in the UK because in here is 700 North Korean refugees live there. And then I met to them and the big problem is that is language, it's English. It's the same as me. They all can't speak English when we arrive. So in 2016, my first project was teaching to English North Korean refugees. So after I made this project and I shared it all over the world. So many people funding to us and many volunteer teachers come to us. And that is really success. And we find face-to-face, one-to-one teaching English. And in 2018, we opened the North Korean Community Center in the South London because many North Korean refugees in South London. So we usually help to them just only life, not human rights issues, housing, benefit, gas, electricity, everything, GPs or something that's everything's here. So we continue to help to that. And I am also online language teacher. Because that is a Korean language teacher in online work. And then now I am running the local elections in here because when I arrived in the UK, UK people always welcome to us and they give to us lots, opportunities, challenges, everything that. So I want to pay back to them because in local it's the same as many people. They need someone's help. So now it's days. So very exciting days. If I lived in North Korea, I never thought about this women's politics. It's kind of elections or something that. But here, this freedom countries give to me every day is different gift. Give me. So that is really happiness times. But in my work is human rights work is just only one dreams because I already made my dreams in here. That is dreams not to be is my family have the same table and we have dinner and the children is smiling. That is big dreams, but it's my country people need these dreams because many women and many families the same. They need family members reunite and they have dinner same table. So yeah, so I usually think about that is save one family is save to world. So that is my nowadays work.
Wow. That's a powerful story. That was Powerful. It made me think of when one of the reasons why Hwang Jang-yap, who was one of the creators of Juche and one of the architects of the regime and Kim Il-sung's right-hand man and tutor to Kim Jong-il, that's one of the things he said when he defected, to save, to try to save a family, to try to save the country. You have to start by trying to save the family. It's amazing. Wow. Well, we wish you luck on your election. Because I think of what a powerful testimony it is when people in North Korea find out that Tae Young-ho, a North Korean defector, is now serving in the parliament of South Korea, elected by South Koreans. A North Korean defector elected by South Koreans to be their representative. And how wonderful it will be when you get elected too. So thank you so much. So Deborah, I want to ask you about how you're doing today. And I want to clarify on the last question, I meant to ask you about when you escaped, you hadn't intended to go to South Korea, but you ended up in the Underground Railroad with Pastor Chung Ki-wan, and you ended up coming here. And I meant to clarify that on your reason how you ended up in the US, but also if you could tell us how you're doing today.
Today, I live a very, very successful life here that I'm considering. I've encountered many difficulties in the USA, especially in the beginnings, but none can compare to what I have endured in North Korea. Each time I faced difficulties, I thought about my mother who never gave up, and I thought about my people living an unfortunate life there. So those thoughts made me stronger and gave me a courage to power to get through the problems and obstacles. So I came here by myself with nothing. Even I lost my backpack. That was the only my possession when I was living in China. But I lost it when I crossed the mountains, I crossed the border from China to Laos. So I literally had nothing. And I mean, now, but I have now a loving family, house, and successful business here. So I live a happy life here that no one living under the regime could never imagine. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Deborah. Thank you. So Jade,
Hello.
how are you doing today?
I'm doing okay. Actually, like in South Korea, as a North Korean refugees, there are a lot of predicaments that I had to get through, but I think it's I mean better than North Korean regime, right? Of course. Now as I'm working, I'm now as still like as university students. I'm about to graduate, and as a North Korean refugees living in here, I think I wanted to let other people, like the South Koreans, know about the North Koreans' real life. So I attended like the lecturing school. A school is like the talk about my personal story as a North Korean refugee in North Korea to the high school students, and then I could see I could see the change of their perspective somehow for attending for several years, And then I'm working at the Youth Forum of North Korea Democratization. This is an organization to teach the North Korean refugees and South Koreans about the democracy. So I'm working in there now, and then yeah, I think I'm doing great so far.
Jade, thank you very much. I'm really proud that we're right on time. Staying to our point of time. I do notice there's a lot of questions coming up. We are going to have some time because we are on schedule. We will have some time at the end, but we'll take the questions at the end. And I just want to say there's a lot of questions about things that you can do. I want to just put in a big plug for the North Korea Freedom Coalition, www.nkfreedom.org. We are a membership organization. It's free to join, but we devote all of our time and energy to promote the freedom, human rights, and dignity of the North Korean people. And as I mentioned before, our foundation was the coalition was formed for the purposes of pushing for the North Korea Human Rights Act. And after we got that successfully passed in 2004, it never quite lived up to what it was supposed to do. So we had to keep the coalition going, and so we're still active, very active, but we work for the freedom, human rights, and dignity of the North Korean people, very much involved with the defectors. And right now, the defector NGOs, but right now trying to do what we can to help the defectors in South Korea, which is a whole other story for another panel. But anyway, but at this point, I want to turn the program over to Buwalda, who of the Jubilee campaign, who's going to moderate our next session to talk about some of the resettlement issues and some of the things that you can do to help improve the lives of the North Korean women. And with that, I will turn this over to Anne. You guys are wonderful. That was terrific. I'm really proud to be your moderator for the first panel. It's an honor to know you three. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. I appreciate the fact that you did an outstanding job in moderating the first panel. Good evening to all of those joining us tonight from the United States. And good morning and good afternoon to all of our viewers from around the world. We actually do have viewers from quite a number of countries. My name is Anne Buwalda, and I'm the Executive Director of Jubilee Campaign. I also practice immigration and refugee law, so resettlement issues are definitely on my heart and part of my career. I will be moderating this second portion of our event, in which our event is entitled Empowering Women Who Served in who saved North Korea. For years, we have heard the stories of struggle and survival of women in the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. At the same time, however, we feel it is equally essential to highlight their experiences following their defection and subsequent relocation to third countries, as this is the case with Jihyun from the UK, Deborah here in the United States, where I'm located as well, and Jade in South Korea. One of the primary initial threats that these North Korean women defectors have faced is repatriation. Despite the provisions set out in the United Nations 1951 Convention relating to the status of refugees, many countries have violated the principle of non-refoulement, thus sending North Korean defector women back to their home country, where they are going to face brutal detention and the most abhorrent treatment. Some of their treatment has included, for these defectors who've been refouled, have included forced abortions, physical and sexual violence, torture, coerced labor, and more. Beginning in 2004, the UN High Commission for Refugees, or UNHCR, had found that defectors from the DPRK were in fact refugees surplus, meaning that they, even though they had fled generalized poverty from the DPRK, the horrendous treatment inflicted upon refouled defectors fit the definition of a refugee under international law. Despite this UNHCR finding, the People's Republic of China has been particularly egregious in refouling North Korean defectors, as has Russia. As reported by the United Nations Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights in the DPRK, in 2019 alone, of the 635 North Korean women who arrived safely in a nearby safe third country, 27% had been detained at least once before their final successful defection. That's a staggering number, and each woman has suffered immense pain and degradation while detained. Today, as we have already heard from our three witnesses, the situation in the DPRK has forced thousands of women into situations where they feel that they have the only option to escape, even when such a defection process is dangerous in and of itself. However, we would now like to turn to the experiences that our three panelists have encountered during the resettlement process and know more about their respective third country experiences. I have a number of questions for our three panelists, and I would afterwards open to the questions that we've been receiving in the chat box and through Facebook. So starting with our first question, as each of you have been accepted for resettlement in 3 different countries, Jihyun is in the UK, Deborah in the United States, and Jade in South Korea. Could each of you share your experiences with the resettlement process and whether you faced any obstacles or received any support during this process? Jihyun, let's start with you.
Thank you so much. So I settled in the UK 2008, but the last time is I never heard that is about the refugee. But I went to the Home Office, and first I was an asylum seeker before I got the asylum seeker first. So then we had the interview in Home Office and with the lawyer. And after I got the visa quickly, it's in April, I got a 5 years visa. And after 5 years after, I also applied my permanent visa, and then I got the citizen, British citizen now. So I am not. I was not. It's really hard because I got my visa so quickly, and also my life is just only nothing. Just is not problems at the moment. But in 2013, when I met my North Korean refugees in the UK, but they had a lot of problems because they not get refugee visas, or they continue to live in asylum seekers. So I was really shocked because I got a refugee visa so quickly, and then after I got my work numbers, so I work freely and travel freely. But some of the people, they lived in here is 5 or 7 years, but they still do not get the visa, refugee visa. So they only asylum seekers. So they have no chance to get many chances because they not travel freely and they not can't find work freely. So that's really hard. Is more at the moment. So in 2015, I visited the European Parliament because I want to ask to them about the North Korean refugees. The reason that is 2011 is South Korea and the UK made some agreement, and it's about the refugee issues. So many North Korean refugees, they can't visa in here, and usually UK government ask to them, why you don't go to South Korea, because they are that is the same language, and the South Korea government support a lot of things. But the UK is not, because UK is only we are refugees, not they support to us separate different, just only refugee issues. But many North Korean refugees, they can't go to South Korea because their families still live in North Korea. So if they go to South Korea and the family members are dangerous in North Korea, so they said everything. But most the problem is that it's a language, because they can't speak English, so they need always a translator. But the South Korean translator, they can't understand North Korea life, and we are same language, but they not too much understand our languages. So usually translator, they translated to the Home Office, but they not say the important words, because these words they can't understand. So it's a big problem. So after they reject the refugee visas or something that. So I want to ask the European Parliament, but European Parliament also same thing, kind of the same thing, is the waiting, just only waiting, or they same is South Korea because two countries the same language and the life is better than in Europe. So that times I really angry to them because you know that the South Korea and the North Korea also joined the United Nations because this means they also accept North Korea as a country. But the refugee issue is why every country is always just can't work properly. So that is really hard. Then in 2018, I helped one of the refugees because she lives in here for more 10 years now, but she's still asylum seeker, and the Home Office they stopped her benefit and everything. So she had no stay. So she only stayed in church. So in daytimes she just only walked in street and slept only night times. So that is really hard. So then I contacted to Red Cross, and then they helped to her. So now she stayed in Red Cross, some settlement in there, and the Red Cross they paid some of the money. So she's now is safe in there. So is the most problem is language because in here is many different country people lives in there, and they have got this long times this they experience. So they have got lawyers, and the translators, everything. But North Koreans only 10 years times. So we have no kind of Korean lawyers, and not is original Korean translator in here. So it is problems in the UK.
Thanks for sharing your experiences and also the experiences of a few others in resettling to the UK. It's, I think, important for our viewers to understand how difficult it is to resettle to countries outside of the Korean Peninsula. Our next panelist would be Deborah, and I would love for her to share about her experience in resettling to the United States. I would point out that, as Suzanne Scholte had referenced earlier, the passage of the 2004 North Korean Human Rights Act was extremely significant. Two of the provisions within the North Korea Human Rights Act actually enabled North Korean defectors to resettle to the United States. In fact, it was one of my staff attorneys who worked with members of Congress to craft the North Korean Human Rights Act in such a way as to ensure that North Korean defectors would have an opportunity to gain refugee resettlement to the United States. So I'm actually quite proud of the work that my office contributed to that legal impact. But from the more practical side of it, Deborah, would you share with us your experience in how you came to resettle to the United States?
Okay. In the beginning, I mean, we arrived in the USA. The government provided us housing, and they gave us over $100 every week for 6 months, only 6 months. And then I remember I could go to the free English class, but that was only 6 months. And then after the 6 month period, and then they just set us free. So you can go wherever you want, So we have to go out, just find a way to survive ourselves. So, but I didn't speak English at all because in my country, North Korea, we learned Russian because it was for the Soviet Union. So we learned only Russian there. I heard nowadays they teach English there. So I studied from alphabet here, and 6 months wasn't enough at all. So I need to quickly get a job to support myself. So I just tried lots of typical jobs, like a restaurant waitress, working at nail salon, and some I tried it, and every time I kicked out because of not speaking English. So it was so sad. I was I remember I crying like when I on the way coming back from the work, and then they just kicked me out. Yeah, I'm like, it was so like I feel so bad not speaking. So I really wanted, at the time I was only 25 years old, 25 years old. So I have ambition, and I have like I was so longing to study, to go to college, get us some, some education. But there was no way for me to study, I was busy to provide myself, and I tried to work full time, and then I tried to go to school like part time at nighttime, but it was super hard. It's very hard. I mean, yeah, I tried. So I tried to kept doing it, but the tuition stuff, and I mean, it was so difficult. So I just, when I got a chance, I go there, and then I quit. I go there, I quit. I tried my best. So that was the if there was some scholars, some like if there's some for us, to provide to go to college or some stuff, then it would be a little bit easier for that. And yeah, that was and then I heard that South Korean, the North Korean defectors from in South Korea, they have better benefits, like housings. They can pay rent like a little small amount, and they can live. I mean, as long as they can, and they have some amount of they can get some amount of money, and also they have some the physical. I mean the mental therapists too. They can talk to what your sorrows, your pain, So I was jealous for them at the time. But in the positive side, I think that program, the 6-month program, made me here this side, and made me more stronger. Like I have to survive, I cannot rely on those kind. I mean, they couldn't. I mean, I couldn't think about like I could have a little relaxed, and I could have some. I mean, not like I mean, I could have relied on those programs, but they cut me out, and then you go out, and then you just I swim in the society, and it gives me a lot of strength. And now I can do anything I can like that. So that's what I think about the programs here.
Deborah, you're giving us a lot of encouragement, because we do see that you're an amazing survivor with a tremendous amount of courage. Thank you for sharing your experiences, including some of the struggles. Jade, you managed to resettle to South Korea, so I'm familiar with the situation with Hanawan, and many of our viewers may not have heard of that. So it'd be really helpful if you could walk us through what was it like to go through Hanawan, the resettlement program in South Korea. We learned a little bit of the benefits, but perhaps you could share what you faced in resettling in South Korea, particularly any obstacles, any challenges to support in the process.
Okay. Okay. I came to here like when I was like high school students. So without any family. So one of the most difficult things that I had to get through was I couldn't say it was loneliness, but I mean it's being alone. So every decision I should make by myself, right? So it was kind of afraid. And then the other things that I felt really like difficult when I was settled down in here, like I think it's especially with the economic issues, because like the government gave us some small amount of the money for when I was at high school, when I was like at the university student, but that's only for the gases, living expenses like a housing fee, and then water fee or electricity fee. So I had to work. So I had three jobs when I was a college student. So that's why and then it's still like couldn't support by myself, because I also have family in there, and then I wanted to support them. So it's by sending money. So I left school like for 3 years, and I had a job and the work and I saved the money and then come back to school again. So that's so most people, like people who didn't know about the refugee situation in here, they said, oh, you guys got some money from the government, but that's you cannot do with the money anything, you can, yeah, really anything. So I had the many jobs, and then it allows me to experience this society more, so from the lower class and from the higher class, because I had an internship in a really good organization and a good company, and then I had to work at the gas station during the winter, so that allows me a lot of experience. So it's kind of money, especially those people who came to here alone, and then they study and then they go to the university, because if you go to university, I was okay to follow the school lectures, but still I didn't get the proper education in here. And so especially English, and then the Koreans, we use the same language, right, same tongues, but there are a lot of the big words we still don't understand. So I need to spend a lot of times compared to the other students, but at the same time I didn't have enough money, so I had to work. So it's kind of really, really hard, I could say, but it made me how to survive in here. So it gives me some to have like some of the inner strength. So I think it's really hard, but still it's good. So another example here, as 우리 Jihyun, Deborah, she mentioned about like, oh, you're jealous living in South Korea, but I'm actually jealous of you, because even except me, like there are a lot of people, especially who are the middle age, they don't have many information about the South Korea. So for example, like there is mother and sons who was I think they died because of the starvation in South Korea, but it's hard to imagine here, right? So some people criticize the woman, she was lazy, or she was too, like, I don't know, introverted person, so she didn't try to find out information. But I don't think so, because they didn't know how to find information. Also, you didn't know what the real situation that she had to get through, right? So in here, because it's died because of the starvation, it's really yeah hard to imagine. And then yeah, actually there are many I don't know how to I don't want to complain about the government and complain about this society, but as many North Korean refugees in here, they even my friends, even the person I know, they been through really yeah hard life in here. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for sharing your experience, and the fact that because you had come over as a teenager and were able to go through school, that gave you somewhat of an advantage from some of the older defectors, and then for sharing about the North Korean defector and her disabled son who were found dead in their apartment, which was such a tragedy. I understand that happened in July 2019, so that was only a couple of years ago. And it seems she didn't have a full, means of attending to her handicapped child and to work. And so that just was a heartbreaking type of story to learn about. And none of us want to see that happen. So definitely there are struggles that many have faced. Here in the US, I'm aware of a couple of defectors who committed suicide because they just could not handle the stress resettlement in the United States and all of the things that contributed to that. And one of the things I do want to address here and have each of you talk about is stigma. So it seems that in the countries where you're resettled, there may be a stigma attached to you when you're coming from North Korea. So once again, if we go around in the same order, Jihyun, if you could address that first. Did you face any stigma in the UK, or are you aware of that others have, and what does that look like? What did that look like in the UK?
Yeah, it's the same as me. When I first to UK, I really scared, and also I hide my face, and I never saw properly in person to face to face, because I had the kind of human trafficking experience and lost the family members. So in the UK, also the many North Korean women is in there, and they also kind of put these situations, human trafficking, and they separated the family members. So that is a really hard mental problem. They usually is mental problems, but they couldn't speak. The reasons that they now is new family members in the UK. So sometimes women is hide their stories or something like that. So it's I am also female, but it's me and in here, my husband is usually heard my stories and my comment or something that we talked a lot of about lots of talk is and the communications. So I do this quickly is improved my mentals or something that, but some of the females they can't do that. So last year we worked with 2 years ago we worked with another is the person who is usually worked about the mental issues in refugees or something like that. So he joined to us, and we now is open to some kind of is it the friend chat. Is it because that is only chat, or someone is the chat with music or acts, something that with North Koreans. But most North Korean people, especially women, they can't stand up to us, because I don't know, it's because they wanted to hide, and this is they not to show to they bind to another people. So that is really happened at moment in here, but we always is support to them, because they only is private messages to me need help or something that, so I want to help to them. So it's private is okay, but it's public is too difficult at the moment.
Yeah, from what you're saying, it's very helpful when there are people who've gone before, kind of trailblazed, or organizations that help, that can help diminish the stigma. But definitely appreciate your sharing your experience on that. Deborah, here in the US, we've heard recently about an uptick in violence against Asians. And of course, this week, the horrible tragedy in Atlanta. Our hearts go out to all the women who had, their families, the women that were murdered, but just the wider situation for Asian women. But so our hearts go out. We acknowledge that stigma is just a terrible tragedy when it's inflicted on people. But Deborah, I'd like for you to share a little bit about your experience here in the US. You resettled, as I believe was mentioned earlier, to Virginia. Northern Virginia in particular has actually quite a high, substantial population of Koreans, but they would be from South Korea with only a handful of North Korean defectors. So I'm very interested to learn, Deborah, what's been your experience here in the US as it relates to stigma and or, potentially even advantages that you had relocating into a community with a large percentage of Koreans?
Luckily, I don't experience any stigma because I'm North Korean and because I'm Asian here. So every time I heard a lot of news from the Asian crime and hate crimes, I feel for them. I mean, I'm Asian, but I don't know, because I don't live in Northern Virginia. I live in Southern Virginia. So there's not many South Koreans and not many Asians. I live literally like a white community or black community here, like with the Americans. So actually, I might experience stigma because of my personal experience or my personal mistakes, or personal, because of my personal problems, but not is it because I'm from North Korea. I mean, I'm from the Asian. I'm Asian. So I'm very thankful for that. And actually, my neighbors and my friends, if they find out I'm from North Korea, they so acceptable. They so support me. So yeah, that wasn't my case. So I'm very, grateful for that. Hopefully, the Asian hate crimes, the people, stop doing that kind of stuff. We are same human beings, no matter what. We live this society together. We have to, live together like in a loving way. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. That's actually relieving and encouraging to learn that you actually have had a positive experience. It's always been here in the United States, from my perspective, as an immigration lawyer and someone who's dealt with refugees. Generally speaking, America is very open. That's part of our culture. And we certainly want to see that improved and built upon, where hate crimes would be, set aside and diminished, and certainly where we encourage people from around the world to come here as refugees and to be resettled in a country where success is available. And thank you, Deborah, for sharing with us that you've had, as you said, a good family and success where you're located there. So Jade, in South Korea, from time to time, I've heard reports that stigma may apply. So I'm curious to know, have you experienced issues with stigma, or do you know of others who have, or what has resettlement been like as it relates to how you're treated in South Korea by other citizens?
Okay, I think there are several stigmas towards North Korean refugees, but only based on my personal experience. I think the traitor. So, for example, when I took the politics about the North Korea, I took that class when I was in college, and then I didn't say that I came from NK to my professor because it's unnecessary, right? And then she talked about some North Koreans defected from their hometown from North Korea because they did some kind of illegal things towards government. So so I was kind of really angry. So I mentioned about that. I didn't thought about the government. I didn't know about what the government doing is. They're all bad or not. I could not distinguish the differences. I just wanted to make a live, and I just wanted to support my family. So I mentioned about that. So I mean, they believed, I don't know, there's some kind of stigma for this community. They are the traitor, to betray the government. I think, of course, it's depends on person, but that's what I experienced in college. So that's all. Yes.
Thanks for that. That's very helpful to learn. I think the reports that I've heard where North Korean defectors have struggled with Stigma, actually, you mentioned earlier about the language usage, where they have an accent, it's discernible. So at times we've heard they've looked down upon. And so some of the older defectors tend to report that. But still, I think that oftentimes there's a welcoming community, even within South Korea. We're well aware that there's a strong network of defector organizations that are very active in South Korea, some of them running for political office, as Suzanne Scholte mentioned earlier, one of them being elected to the government there. We're excited about that. So I do believe that prejudices can be overcome and society can be taught and trained to be more sympathetic to the fact that North Korean survivors are resourceful and rich with many talents, and that's something which South Korea benefits from. There's one final question I wish to ask each of you, and then after that we'll go to the questions in the chat box. So this final question is, what kinds of actions, advocacy, activism can be done to help North Korean women wherever they are? In other words, whether they're in North Korea, whether they've been resettled to South Korea, whether they're in transit in China. We didn't really talk a lot about that, but women in transit in China suffer immensely, including trafficking. And many of them are sold as wives or sold into essentially sex slavery in China. So, and then those maybe in the UK and the US. So what kind of activism would be most fruitful? And once again, if we go in the same order, Jihyun, do you have some thoughts for us on activism, actions and advocacy that could be taken to benefit and help North Korean defector women?
Yeah, myself, human rights activities, and I usually met many NGOs and human rights activities. So they all agree about that is North Korea human rights issues, but they not speak out much about the North Korean women. So, and the many journalists, this is a man, and the NGO leader is man, and they all always speak about the North Korean women, and they questions to North Korean victims, same as me. Is many journalists, but they ask a lot of different questions. So that is really horrible times, because it's victims. They need more care. Somebody they need to care about this. Someone's care about, because they had kind of pain experience inside. So now I think about that we need women's education first. So we have to more journalists come out, and then more leadership in world. So the reasons that is the man, yeah, I know it's many NGOs, the leaders, the man, and they also really hard work. I know that is really thankful to them. But man is not too much understand women's rights, women's experience. So that's why it's now in in all over the world, we total 35,000 North Korean people, and 80% is North Korean women. But it's still many people don't know what happened in North Korean women. So in South Korea, they still speak about the convert women in the Japanese eras, it's Moon Jae-in also speak about that, but they never speak about North Korean women's kind of human trafficking, sex slavery, online prostitutions, everything. They don't speak that. So we did education to women, and we find out the more journalists and some kind of leaders. So that is a very important, and also refugee issues. That is very important issues. In beginning in 1921 is when World War I is happened, and then 800,000 Russian refugees, they escaped the communist regime and they arrived in Europe. But that time is many European countries not accept these refugees. The reasons that they not is a kind of documents or passport. So that time is the Norway activity. Norway activities nonsense. So he really hard work and he made temporary passport, is nonsense passport. He made that and then give it to them refugees. And after they went to the European countries and after many countries accept. So in North Korean people, original people, we all statelessness people because the reasons that we have no passport because the government not to give to us passport. So that's why when we escaped North Korea and arrived in China, they not accept to us. So if we have got passport, we not stay in China. We maybe go to some different countries, America, UK, South Korea, then freely, but we have no passport. So I read many statelessness report, but this report is never mentioned in North Koreans. So 25 million people are stateless in our world. So this United Nations always speak about the refugee issues, but never kind of actions, how can we improve these issues, how we save these people. So so I want to think about that is we work about that, we make that is temporary passport to North Korean refugees who lives in China. So that is could be we saved much more people.
That's a very interesting statistic that 80% of the 35,000 North Koreans who are outside of North Korea and essentially defectors are women. That's actually quite a staggering number and percentage. And so, yeah, thanks for referencing the other items that you shared. And each of you have mentioned the challenges that women have suffered, just amazing amounts of discrimination in North Korea, which is very contrary to North Korea's reports that they've submitted to the UN, wherein they claim that women have equal rights. You've all shared how women of North Korea are actually quite terribly treated. So, and definitely in the resettlement portion, we would love to see that North Korean women are uplifted, particularly in light of the percentages. Deborah, if you would also address that question, what kind of actions, advocacy, activism, do you have any thoughts that our viewers could learn from that would be useful for them to undertake?
Yes. Well, I don't work. I'm not work for activists because maybe in the future, but I'm not ready now. But in my thinking, I mean, and my perspective that yeah, it's we international community, we always raise voice together to oppress China, the government of China and the Kim Jong-un regime that stop abusing women here. I mean, stop, or North Korean stop abusing. They should stop. So really all international, I mean, all people around the world, please put attention the situation going on. It's not really fair for the North Korean woman. This is 2020. I mean, there is still that kind of horrible situation exists. So please, everyone, pay attention for them and pray for them and raise voice together. And here in the United States, as I mentioned before, if there's some, scholarship opportunities more for, so we can get educated ourselves and save time and energy to, suffering from, settling down here. And also if there is some like a mental therapist, you know, and then we have a huge gap from huge culture gaps from North Korea to here. So it was so confusing. Like we don't know what to do. So if there's a mentor, you know, who help us guide, you know, some set of plans. I mean, help us do some planning, you know. So I was so I mean, blocked. Like what can we do? I mean, and especially in North Korea, we cannot do anything by ourselves. They control us to do. They let us to do. Or you only follow their rules. So after came out here, like a freedom country, which is so good. That's what I wanted. But I didn't have the process of living here right away, you know. So I was like stuck all like there and here. Like I made a lot of mistakes. I made you know. So it was very, very challenged. So if there's so that's what I suggest, you know, if there's some kind of sort of that kind of program here.
Excellent point. Yeah, mentoring and just having, you know, organizations, perhaps churches to stand up and provide resources. And as you said, mental health is so important because so many defectors have gone through excruciating experiences on their way over. They've suffered post-traumatic stress disorder. And if that's not handled, then as I mentioned earlier, there had even been a couple of defectors that committed suicide after coming to the US because they couldn't cope, potentially the PTSD, but also they just couldn't cope with you know, the resettlement hurdles that you've described. Thanks for that. And Jade, how about you? Do you have suggestions, recommendations, thoughts that would be helpful?
Okay. In South Korea, I think there are people, especially the women who are traumatized experience from the life in China. So, but there are many, like, you know, the therapy programs nowadays. So if they have enough courage to open their stories, maybe they're gonna get the help from the, you know, the therapies, therapy organization by the, you know, Hana Foundation. So I wanted to mention about the women, especially in China, because like they don't have, like, you know, identification, and they're just kind of, you know, really nervous and stressed life in there. So sharing my experience from my friends, she lives in Daegu now, and then when she got pregnant in China, and then she was repatriated by the, you know, boys to NK, and then she lost her kids, her first kids in NK, because like the policeman in the prisoners, when she was in the prison, the person who got the prison, right? Can I say call the police? They just kicked her bump, so that's how she lost her kids. And but she was still, you know, living her life is in here is fine. She's working very hard, but she's still, you know, kind of that memories makes her, you know, sometimes awake while sleeping. So I think living woman in South Korea is fine, I guess, compared to the people in, you know, China. So please try to find a way to help them. It's the best way. It's kind of way to save a person's life totally. If you know, help one person in there, you know, it's really, yeah, save the person's life. So I wanted to mention about this. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. It's so true. And our hearts go out to those who are struggling. And we definitely encourage community and community services to be provided. So thank you for that, for sharing even what your friend experienced. So a couple of questions. These two are a bit related. Is there anything you miss in North Korea? You can answer that. Or are there people working for change in North Korea? So it's kind of two sides of the coin. So if each of you could address that, is there anything you do miss from North Korea? And secondly, are some people working for change in North Korea? So Jihyun, we'd start with you on that.
Yes, miss family and friends, yeah, because in here, usually people, they met high school friends or college friends, university friends. So I really miss my friends. Just only to that, and the family members, yeah, just only to that, yeah. And the second question is, what is it? How come people North Korea work for change? Are some people working for?
Are there people working for change in North Korea?
North Korea is, we don't know that we don't know this means choice. This means because it's in here is many people, they choose their jobs freely, but in North Korea so usually government give to us jobs. So if your father is the farmer and your children is still working farmer side, yes, same. So we cannot change it. Our work is continued. All whole life is work same area.
Deborah, do you have comments on that? Is there anything you miss? And is there any way that, yep, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't miss all of them except the regime. People, family, even the affection with the people. Like this America is too private. You don't talk with. They rarely talk with neighbor. Like you don't know which lives in neighbor. But my culture wasn't like that in the North Korea, because everybody, we could go around everybody's family. We can, like a neighbor's house, we can sleep like freely there. So I kind of miss that kind of affection. Yeah, I miss them a lot. And second one, is there people changing in North Korea? What's it?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I came out. I already came out like 17 years, so I'm not sure, 100% sure about it. However, I don't think it's possible to have the kind of people exist, because if not, there is a three generation execution over there. So they put every effort to find out that kind of people and execute them. It's a horrible, yeah. It's so I don't think it's possible that that kind of people exist. But I'm not, again. That's that's my perspective. So
Jade, is there anything you miss?
Okay, I think that already two people already mentioned. I miss my family much. Yeah, that's all.
Okay, so I'll answer two quick in the chat box technical questions on passports. Yeah, the US and the UNHCR do provide temporary passports for individuals who have been designated for resettlement. So I think the earlier comment was made, if they were in China and had passports already, then they would have more flexibility in terms of other countries they could go to, because so many women particularly suffer exploitation in China. And if they had a passport, they could actually escape the exploitation they suffer in China. And then does North Korea still use its citizens' passports, or was this the only done in the past? Of course, North Korea does issue passports to its citizens, but when individuals are prevented from departing North Korea without permission, they won't get a passport if they don't have permission to leave. And so most defectors, vast majority, flee with nothing, just no identity, in fact, because if they're caught, they wouldn't want their family members to know about that. And I'd like to direct a question to Suzanne regarding the ROK treatment of defectors. Did you have some comments about that, Suzanne Scholte?
Yeah, in 2019, South Korean government repatriated two young North Korean refugees to North Korea. They're horrible, because we usually heard that China sent repatriated to us, North Korean refugees to North Korea, but South Korea too South Korea too. So usually sometimes I think about that is South Korea kind of president in there? Because only Kim Jong-un and Kim Yo-jong's machines in there, they're not kind of president or is it the administrations in South Korea, because they now is treat and the violence our North Korean refugees. So in 2019, same that is the Han Song-ok and her child died of starvations. That is really horrible, and they still now in South Korea. They treated North Korean refugees who lives in South Korea, and they also unification officials said that that they can't trust North Korean refugees stories or something that's really horrible. So they are look like that is a socialism populist in South Korea at the moment.
So Suzanne, could you address that? And also, would you address bringing down the Korean Workers' Party? There's two questions regarding that.
Well, yeah, thank you, Anne. I'm really glad that Jihyun brought that issue up about what's happening to North Koreans in South Korea today. We actually had at our last coalition meeting, Ha Kwan-il, who's the head of the Committee for the Democratization of North Korea. That is the oldest North Korean defector organization. It was founded by Hwang Jang-yap. And for the first time in its history, the South Korean government has cut off all of the support that it used to get. All the North Korean defectors groups have been totally cut off from any support. And as Jihyun Park mentioned, they actually have repatriated refugees that were escaping. So we had a President Park Geun-hye, who basically stated, any North Korean who wants to follow their dreams, come to South Korea. Follow your dreams.
Yeah. I cried when I heard this voice. I cried, It's welcome. This meaning is lots, opportunity, challenge, freedoms. So, but she said that it's welcome to South Korea,
Yeah, so we have a change from a president now who has completely taken the human rights issues off the table, doesn't even talk about North Korean rights, has undercut all the work of the North Korean defectors, has actually done the bidding of the regime. It's important we bring this up because this is a United Nations event. But what happened most recently is a violation of the South Korean Constitution and the international treaties that the South Republic of Korea signed, but they've actually banned getting information into North Korea. Some of the most effective work the North Korean defectors have done with balloon launches and rice bottle launches to get information into North Korea. So it's a very, very troubling what's happening right now for the North Koreans in South Korea. And I'm glad you.
Yeah, that is information is really important, because your question is how we down the North Korea Workers' Party, because the North Korea crossed the borders in early 1960s. The reasons that is that many people they read and they tested in outside the countries in early 1950s or something that. So Kim Il-sung is really scared because Kim Il-sung made these countries in 1948, and the histories, everything's fake, not real. It's fake histories, and he made North Korea. So he really scared about the North Korean people. So that's why he controlled his information from outside the countries to inside North Korea. So now it's Kim Jong-un is the same. It's all over the world. Think about that is maybe Kim Jong-un is scared about the sanctions or America or something that. But never Kim Jong-un is scared about the North Korean people, because after all those marches and everyone they got some information from South Korea. They watched the South Korean movies, American movies. So every people changed their mind, because North Korea is not a great country. They already knew that. So that's why Kim Jong-un is controlled the people. And last year, Kim Yo-jong shouted to South Korea. And after South Korea government quickly changed their plans and they stopped the balance and information everything that. So we continued work with send information to North Korea and change the people mind.
Yeah, I think the testimonies show how powerful information is, and what Deborah said about how her whole view changed. And that the defectors always say the truth will set them free. The power of information, that's the most important thing we ought to be doing. But the Moon government is stopping it all. Sorry.
Yeah, including balloon launches and
Yes.
including other initiatives to get information into the DPRK have been pretty much shut down. And we continue to do advocacy to try to counter those moves. In fact, I think one group is even litigating in South Korea to try to push back on efforts of the Moon government from preventing and restricting information to flow into North Korea. So we would like to thank all those who participated with us today, thank all our viewers, but we especially would like to thank the 3 defectors who are now so well integrated into their countries of resettlement. Thank you for sharing your stories, the stories of some of your relatives and friends. It's been just a real heart touching event. And we didn't get to all the questions. We regret that. Hopefully you will have experienced, as each of us can see, how lives can be transformed. And we're just so grateful that each of these 3 women and up to 35,000 other North Koreans have managed to rebuild their lives outside of North Korea in ways that hopefully will change in years ahead. Suzanne, did you have any closing remarks that you'd like to provide?
No, I'm just thank you, Anne, so much for your moderating, whatever. And these brave women, you guys, I told you, you guys were amazing. Thank you so much. Psalm 18, 46 through 49. And the truth, and also John, the truth will set them free. Thank you, Anne.
If I could just add, please follow us at nkfreedom.org. Follow us on social media so you can learn how to get more involved in the future. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Apogee Chayubakan.
Chayubakan.
Chayubakan. Apogee Chayubakan.
That's amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.